It's Monday the 28th. The big push today of around 30 kilometres is to the northern tip called Sandy Cape with the old lighthouse up on the ridge. Now the beach is good, but we must pass two bad rock outcrops, and these will stop you at anything above half tide. They're known as South and North Ngala rocks. They both have bypasses, but these are notoriously steep and extremely soft. Good thing we've got the old cruiser with the low pressure tyres and the diff lock. No mention of a skilled driver, Bob reminds me again. The South Ngala, has a one vehicle track that winds along the shoreline through the black sandstone to form a canyon that's always full of water. We nicknamed it the Canyon. It's a real side mirror smashing, diff crunching, sump dragging hazard. Then up the steep, dry, soft sand hill for about 200 metres and then another few hundred metres down the other side to the beach. The sort of place where dozens line up with their cameras to get YouTube footage of all manner of vehicles and drivers trying to show off their capabilities, or lack thereof, I might add. Do yourself a favour, check it out. Anyhow, we're lined up waiting to get through one at a time, and this idiot streams up in his ute, passes Bob, queue jumping, and then proceeds to block the road by getting hopelessly bogged on the steep sandhill on the other side. Great. Bob couldn't see around the corner, so he followed and is committed to the canyon of no return, where he is now blocked on the other uphill side. With mutterings and other unprintable and speakable grunts, we have to just sit forced to wait at the base of the hill climb. After 15 minutes, the turkey ahead manages to get out, and good old Bob sticks the cruiser in low ratio diff lock and gives the old girl a bit of stick, in fact a lot of stick. Sand flies off the tyres in every direction, and we lurch forward through the one rut after another, grinding up and over to finally hit the hard beach on the other side. Oh, no worries, says Bob with a stupid grin. That's how it's done. Oh, he's the man, isn't he? Well, with tail feathers up, we set off to the next set of rocks, the northern Ngala rocks. And another vehicle's deeply buried in the soft sand on the steep bypass track. And we opt to wait for the tide to back off a bit so that we can go around the rocky headland. Pretty soon the tide has dropped a few more centimetres, and we run the gauntlet of receding waves to scoot around then we're cruising along the next 15 kilometres right to the top. Well, rounding the top, we end up moving from the eastern side to the western, where the water changes from surf to calm. And zipping past the campers and fishermen on the western side of the island, we cruise the 10 kilometres or so down to the lighthouse. Now, it's about a 1.2 kilometre walk, and it looks great, but it's very hot, and the sand it's almost like a vertical climb, and only official vehicles allowed. I look around, find that Bob's out there talking to someone on the beach. Now I'm waiting and waiting and waiting, about 50 metres away under the scattered shade of a she oak tree, and trying to push the hint. But no, Bob's still talking. Finally he breaks away and we start the hot climb, 100 metres in, and there's this guy that Bob was chin-wagging with, driving up behind us with his wife and in a 4x4. Hey, you blokes want a lift to the top? Bet your bottom dollar we do, and we jump in. Turns out this bloke who Bob was making small talk with, Bob's the master of small talk, I can tell you, he's on the beach, is a turtle watching volunteer who actually lives for this time in the lighthouse residence. Well, we get to the top and Bob proceeds to give me a lesson about making friends with the right people. He says, it's not what you know, Ross, it's who you know. Oh, okay, good on you, mate. And we enjoy the view. We had to walk down by ourselves. There was only enough friendship to get us to the top, not back down again. Now, I'm about to include a story that I had, if I hadn't seen it, I wouldn't have believed it. I'm trying to paint a picture of a group of young bucks who'd actually been travelling up at the same time as us from the campsite to the top of the island. Now, they'd stopped a few clicks back, so we were about half an hour, they were about half an hour behind us. Now, even though the sand was piping hot, they decided to walk the steep track up to the lighthouse. Now, the signs at the bottom warn you to wear shoes for such an occasion. But no siree, the sign is obviously for wimps. These dudes are too tough, and I think a bit full of terps actually. They headed up the burning sand with 3 of them wearing thongs and the other barefoot. We met with them close to the top, stubbies in one hand, running from one tiny bit of shade to another. By now, the 2 of them have decided to share the 1 pair of thongs. They would run for 20 or 30 minutes, then change feet. Somehow, the logic was burn one, rest one. We just shake our heads in disbelief and continue on. Hormones and beer seem to make a young man do strange things, Bob mumbles. Towards the bottom, we spot a sign that says, hey, 600 metres to World War II radar installation, bunkers and graves. Well, curiosity sucked us in and away we went. It seemed like more like about 1,000 metres, but we eventually found the site, and the bunkers being in the gully must have been accommodation and protection, because the radar would have had to have been up on high ground, somewhere close by, but who knows. Okay, the afternoon low tide allows us to drive along the beach and without any troubles at all, get around the rocky headlands, and we cruise back to base camp, which is at Waddy Point. We both crash out on the sand under the shade of the she oak tree and for a grandpa nap, you know how it is. Anyhow, half an hour later, Bob decides it's time to fill the water jerry cans. Now, it's only about 200 metres down to the camp watering point. So being slack, he tosses them in the car, rolls down the road to the tap. Around the corner, off the beach, seemingly out of nowhere, come the boys in blue. Where's your seatbelt, mate? With an aggressive stare as they began the process of booking him. Now, over the years, Bob has had a knack of putting a burr under their saddle, but on this occasion, it was late in the afternoon, and like us, they'd had enough excitement for one day, and let him slip away with a warning. Oh dear. So, Beelzebub Blues gets added to our list of adversaries on the island. Evening meal's always a bit of a mixed bag. Tonight it's spaghetti and meatballs, and for a base, and then a can of baked beans, and a packet of soup, whatever comes to hand. Then noodles from an instant noodle pack. And, you know, we don't want to ruin the exotic flavour, Bob says, so the noodle flavour satchels are tossed into the bin. Then we put as much pepper on the dish as we can sustain, and it's mixed in a saucepan until piping hot and served in 2 bowls. You might think that's the end of the product, but no siree. I get a packet of potato chips and crunch them on top. I say, we got to add texture. And Chef Bob quickly agrees. By now it's dark, and of course, being a ban on fires on the island, we don't risk a candle, and someone had forgotten the camp lantern, so our miner's lights are strapped to our heads, and they flash their beams around as we scoop the delicious stew from our bowls. It doesn't get any better than that, says Bob. I agree, and he sneezes, and as the pepper hits its mark. Anyhow, interaction with the other explorers is often humorous. The previous mentioned hot sand dancing blokes who had travelled up to the tip with us in convoy style, they gave us the call sign Dad's Army, and we referred to them as young bucks on the CBs. It was good having 2 vehicles, looking out for each other. However, they had knocked back a few eskies full of cordial, you know, the VB flavour, and by the time they got home, they were 3 sheets to the wind, you know. Fortunately, they were smart enough to have a designated driver. Anyhow, they gave us a hearty invitation for a cordial after tea, but, you know, wisdom whispered in our ear, lead them to it. They were all dead, the world snoring away in their swags within the hour. Poor little tykes, it's been a big day for them, commented Bob. Speaking of being dead, yeah. The other afternoon, Bob wanders off somewhere, and I sit back with my cap over my eyes, nodded off to sleep in the shade. Sometime later, I'm half awake when I hear Bob's footsteps come up beside me. Now I'm just relaxed with my cap over my face, and he reaches down, checks my pulse. He's come back and sees that I'm not moving and thinks I might have carked it. But without moving, I mumble from under my cap, "I'm still alive." "Oh, thank God," he says, "I've forgotten to bring the body bags." We enjoy a laugh, and life of two old buggers goes on. There you go.